area over there. So if you have additional questions about the park or the open space system, just come over and I can answer your questions. Thank you.
So in addition to the parks and open space that Patricia just went through, we have been able to integrate our stormwater and drainage facilities. To give you guys a little context of the different acreage that we're talking about, Andy mentioned earlier in the presentation that we have about 73 acres of parkland and open space being dedicated to this project. 27 acres of that 73 is what Patricia was just talking about, more of our program parks for the active and passive uses. The other 55 acres of this project is essentially the Rooney Valley, Rooney Gulch coming through here as open space, and then even the channel that cuts through the northeast corner of the project. So of the 73, 27 is dedicated to parkland. The City of Lakewood requirement for dedicated parkland is only 16 acres. So our project is currently proposing more parkland than what would meet the minimum requirements from Lakewood. And in addition, we have about 49 plus another 5 of the natural open space components of the project that I'll talk about. So the open space areas are handling our drainage ways, and we have 2 major drainage ways that cut through the project. One's up in the northeast corner, and it essentially takes drainage from the Solterra development down through the northeast corner of our project and outlets through a pipe under Indiana into the drainage way that's north of the Fontana subdivision. And that ultimately leads into Bear Creek Reservoir. The second major drainage way through our project is the Rooney Gulch, and that also flows ultimately to the the Bear Creek Reservoir. And you can see on this graphic that we've integrated our stormwater, water quality detention basins throughout the project in key locations. And then if you recall on Patricia's graphic here, we have trails integrated through these open space components that will really be built into the drainage way improvements that we're talking about. Since October, we have been very successful in having multi-agency collaboration on this channelway. The agencies we've been collaborating with is the City of Lakewood, Urban Drainage Flood Control District, and the Army Corps of Engineers. For those of you that don't know, there's a little finger of property that extends into this community that is Army Corps owned land. It is a floodway channel for Bear Creek Reservoir. So this is a portion of our property, or that is Army Corps property. And we are coordinating with them, 2 divisions of the Army Corps we're coordinating with. One's the 404 division for the Clean Water Act, and then the other division is the 408 Land Development Division of the Army Corps. And why we're engaging in both divisions there is we have some storm drain outlets that extend into the Corps property, so those will have to be reviewed by the Corps and approved with the Corps and the City of Lakewood. And then we're processing the 404 permits for the project to basically look at the channel in some detail with Urban Drainage Flood Control District. They have some proposals through this channel for channel stabilization. The channel has some high areas of erosion, and they are currently working on a design called a riffle design. And really what it's going to be doing is, rather than the larger drop structures you guys might be familiar with the channelway, they're going to be much smaller drop structures, leveling out the channel to the point where it's flowing at a lower velocity, potentially creating more habitat in key areas. And so our multi-agency collaboration is really addressing all drainage impacts to the channel with all those agencies. And a sample of the channel enhancement is this is some of the channels that haven't been stabilized. They have high levels of erosion on the side of channels. And then the channel stabilization effort that Urban Drainage has been working on and implementing in channels where possible levels it out, gives a little bit more opportunity for the water to slow down, but still carry through. There are a number of factors that go into all the design, making sure that you don't have stagnant water, but at the same time you're creating habitat, not creating any vector issues. It's all conceptual right now, but we do have Urban Drainage and the Army Corps working together for these channel improvements, and it should be a very good integrated component into our developments on the edges while we integrate our trails and park space right along this drainage way. So it's something that we're pretty proud of on the project that's evolved since we presented this to you last October. Some of the fiscal benefits.
Thank you, Rob. So on the fiscal side, there's really two ways to look at land development, regardless of residential, commercial, or otherwise. There's a fiscal aspect to it, which has to do with the government and its actual coffers, right? The actual budgeting, collection of revenue and the expenditure for expenses. And that's the fiscal aspect. And then there's an economic impact, which affects the broader economy, creates jobs, creates investment opportunity, creates, that has all the ripple effects that flow throughout the economy. And obviously they interchange, or they interrelate with one another. But we have commissioned an independent fiscal and economic impact study. And it's important to note that it is both. We do have the economist looking at the fiscal impact to the governing jurisdiction and to the economic impact to the area as a whole. And the final report is expected to be published in 2 or 3 weeks, and we will be happy to make that available to the community. I have had the privilege of a preliminary look at it and some of the preliminary findings, and unfortunately, by the nature of being preliminary, I can't present those numbers to you here tonight, but they are favorable. It is a positive fiscal cash flow for the governing jurisdiction, and in this case we're talking about Lakewood, as it relates to the collection of all streams of revenue and the expenditures required to provide services to the community here. And there's a couple of key things to talk about. The types of typical services that are provided is different for almost all communities, and this one falling into that mold as well. And the primary services that would be provided are, to account for in this fiscal impact study, is law enforcement, public works, plowing streets, repairing potholes, etc., and general administrative services and overhead, like having an elected body, having staff to run the city, and et cetera. There are certain services that would be provided under the general overhead or administrative services that hypothetically pay for themselves. So for example, if one of you were to purchase a home in this community, you wanted to build a deck, and that deck required a permit, you would go into the building department, file for said permit, and you would pay a permit fee. That permit fee is intended to pay for the services provided to approve that deck and inspect it if need be, and et cetera. So this study is very comprehensive. It is accounted for all of those various streams and all of the ripple effects associated with them. And again, we'll be happy to share that with you. But it is going to be a positive cash flow as a result on the fiscal side. Now, on the economic side, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars infused into the local economy. A large portion of that would be in the very local area surrounding this, being the city of Lakewood primarily. But the job creation as it relates to the commercial center when it's built out, and the economic impact both during the construction period where there is a large spike in economic activity, and then after full build out, post-construction and ongoing will also be presented, and it's a staggering number again in the hundreds of millions in economic impact. So one of the reasons that it is so favorable, although we were always confident it was favorable regardless, but one of the reasons it is now certainly quite favorable is because here is a snapshot of it. The town of Morrison has agreed to disconnect the entire property, including the commercial space, and not solely the residential land. And that is a significant change since October.
How in the world did you do that? I don't know how to ask this nicely, but they've been the stumbling block for the last 3 attempts at development.
Yes, sir, I understand. There's no secret to it. It's really it's engagement. It's engagement like this here tonight. Members of the town of Morrison have come to many of these kinds of meetings and reported back, presumably, to their town staff and elected officials. We've engaged, of course, the town's staff and elected officials where appropriate. And it's been an ongoing dialogue for quite some time. And so I don't think there's no secret to my recipe for that sauce.
So what you're telling us is that Morrison finally gave up and is going to allow Lakewood the whole development?
That is what this letter says, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Schools.
Thanks. Who here is concerned about schools? Right? Me too, I'm a parent, I have an 8-year-old going into 3rd grade at Vinny. So when I started kind of investigating this, one of the concerns was, where's my kid gonna go to school? Is it gonna be too crowded? Is there gonna be enough space when she gets to junior high? And so when I started hearing what these guys were talking about, it started making sense. Like, hey, they want to help solve these problems rather than be part of the problem. So they started engaging the school district in a way that I've never seen a developer do, where they pulled the school district into this in ways that they didn't want to be necessarily pulled into it. So in that process, the school district, instead of a cash and lieu piece, which basically means the developer has to pay some cash to the school district, and they put that in their general fund, and hopefully that goes to your school. In this case, the school came back and said, we'd like a school site for this development. So the hope is that will eventually become a school. So I think some of the cool things, so it's 13 acres, it's going to be contributed as part of this development to Jefferson County School District. I don't know if you've been following, Dunston Middle School is going to be expanded. Part of their process was the bond funding that didn't happen. They actually came through and have given the capital improvement dollars to start that project. So Dunston the design's in the works now. And they're saying, at least through my contact at the school district, that they're going to be starting Dunston any day now and have 6th grade going into Dunston beginning in 2018. That's going to take pressure off all the elementary schools. So Rooney, Green Valley, Foothills, Deviney, and Hutchinson. So those schools will be taking their 6th grades and putting them into Dunston with its expanded capacity. So just having the school site, I think, has been part of the hot button. So like, how do we as residents and parents and concerned about schools, this development's going to have a school site that's going to be included with it as part of the development.
Maybe a new picture will come up.
They're gonna have questions.
Thanks, everybody. My name's Troy Bales, and I'm with Rick Engineering, and I'm a project engineer. I was also here back in October and see some familiar faces. So thanks again for coming out and listening. Back in 2008, there was a traffic study that was completed. The existing Morrison plan, with all the commercial and office space that was there, generated approximately 62,000 trips per day. We've generated a new traffic study that meets state and City of Lakewood standards, and it focuses on pretty much the majority of this area, with the extension all the way out to Bear Creek Boulevard. So we've done extensive analysis on all these intersections to ensure that they meet the services provided, or an adequate service versus a failing service. So there are some signals that will be warranted, but will not be constructed until warranted. So those include Morrison and McIntyre, this connection into Morrison here. There's a good signal that will be up here, but again, and then another one up here. But again, these are only be installed once they're warranted. And appreciate you guys all coming here today. And yes, sir.
The traffic, is that based on day or a week or a year or what?
Those are trips per day. So
Average daily trips.
So as you can see, there's a significant decrease with our proposed project from the original plan that was proposed in Morrison.
So I'm not really understanding the traffic in terms of number of vehicles. Is that number of vehicles in and out of Red Rocks Ranch, or number of additional vehicles in that total area
Well, based on the uses that were added to the development, that's the additional trips. So not necessarily the people that are outside, those are already accounted for. Solterra and Tamarisk and other facilities, just what's been added to as a part of the development.
Billy, if I could, one of the stations will be discussing traffic, and he can go into more detail about any questions about how we do a traffic study and how those trips are generated. So that might be something we can have a more personal discussion and talk to.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys have a hard time with this thing. Don't give them equipment.
Just to reiterate, we've left a long period of time for the breakout session exactly to get into the nuts and bolts of each of your key questions and details. And we are asking you, please, even if you have asked and had your question answered so far here tonight, please put those questions down on the question cards that we're gonna hand out here shortly. The point, and I don't recall if Brian explained this, so I apologize if I'm being redundant, but during the breakout session, we're asking you, we have plenty of clipboards up there, and we're asking you to have one here that in October of last year, we had our first full-scale public meeting of this kind, a neighborhood meeting, I call them. And that neighborhood meeting was fully communicated by the city of Lakewood. We organize these neighborhood meetings. We pick the location and the day and the time and coordinate with the city on that. But that meeting was one that followed a very specific step in the city's process, which is prior to making submittal of any applications, we hold a neighborhood meeting. That was a joint meeting that met both Town of Morrison and City of Lakewood requirements. This meeting here tonight is informal. This is us as developer, acting solely as developer, to engage the public and get your feedback and give you an opportunity to speak and us to listen. We've been doing other forms of public outreach, like I mentioned. We've met with many individuals one-on-one. We've met with small groups. We've met with homeowners association boards. We want to make it very clear that this process for us is transparent. We want to get the right information out. We want to get it out to as many people as possible. So again, we are in that process right now. So if we look down here, you see that from about April, that's when we really went hard on more public outreach. So from April through December is community outreach and public hearings. The specific next steps would be the Town of Morrison Board of Directors acting to approve a disconnect. And then there'd be a public hearing for Lakewood. There'll be a public hearing for annexation and zoning. Those would be the next specific public hearings. They have they have planning commissions associated with them, and et cetera. That's not the only, potential path or series of steps, but just to be clear, those are the next public meetings. But our community outreach is ongoing, and we will keep it that way. So please reach out to us. Spring of 2018 is what we've targeted for the earliest that we would begin construction. That would mean earth moving activities. There's a measurable amount of earthwork to be done out there. And so that's the start of what we refer to as land development, building the horizontal infrastructure for the community. That's going to take some time. Based on how long it would take to do the land development, build the first homes in the community, and then complete those homes, close them with a homeowner and have that homeowner occupy the home. The very first home occupations we're looking at is in late 2019. Once homes start being occupied, it'll depend on market conditions, but it's likely to take between 5 and 7 years for the community to build out fully. And so we would be looking at anywhere between 2025 and the year 2027 before this vision that we've given you here tonight would be fully completed. So with that, I'll just quickly summarize what we started off with, which is, yes.
Sorry to bring this up again, but the letter that you showed us, is that the formal disconnect from Morrison for this property, or is this?
No, sir, and I have a copy of the letter. I'm happy to have anyone read it here tonight. Again, we didn't bring it as a handout, but happy to have you read it. That is a letter expressing the Board of Trustees' support for that concept. It is not.
It hasn't happened?
It has not been voted upon, no.
By the Town of Morrison?
Correct.
Thank
Again, the same before and after slide. So the current zoning is 1,000 homes. We were here in October talking about 1,400. Now we're less than 1,200. On the commercial, 208 acres down to 40 acres of neighborhood retail. 29 acres of parks and open space. Now we're up to 73 acres again. I want to point out our requirement in the city of Lakewood is approximately 16 acres. We're providing 27. That's of parkland. We're providing another 46 acres of additional open space for a total of 73. So our parks and open space plan is really, blowing the doors off of any minimums of any kind. Schools, previously no site under the current zoning. Then for a period of time, we expected it to be cash in lieu. Now we're proposing land dedication. And that is in response to Jeffco Public Schools' request. That was not our idea. We did not pitch it to them. That's what they came to us and said their need was. We're happy to fulfill that need for them. Traffic, we've talked about extensively. Then again, we talked about Morrison versus other jurisdictions there.
The proposed school, would that be an elementary school, K through 5?
K through 8
Okay.
is what they're looking for.
And the 13 or the 16 acres, Jeffco schools usually like 28 acres for schools, so why is it so low?
I'm sorry, the 16 acres was parkland.
Oh.
That wasn't related to schools.
For the school, that's dedicated to the school? Jeffco schools normally like 28 acres for their schools.
Depends on the type of school. It's different, elementary versus middle versus high, and whether or not it's a combined campus of any of those. And so what I can do is I can provide the school district what they've asked me for. That's what they've asked me for. There are formulas that go into the calculation, very extensive formulas that the school district manages, based on housing types and quantities, on what kind of student enrollment that generates and what that student enrollment then converts into as it relates to land on an acreage basis. And so what I can say here is that the Jeffco Public Schools has asked us for that 13 acres, and that's what we've agreed to provide.
Thank you, Andy. I'm gonna kind of close things out, but I wanted to, I'm gonna ask Nick to start handing out those comment cards. And so we're gonna basically start building it up. There was one piece of information that which we think may have not been clearly put out. The project